We are live. We are live. Okay.
Live.
Welcome to the Build Podcast, ladies and gents. This is the first episode, the first installment, and I have a very special guest with me. Somebody that I am definitely proud and confident and proud to call my friend.
Yes.
And also somewhat of an advisor, you know what I'm saying? And hopefully a potential manager.
But are you making the announcement, huh?
That's a whole nother conversation.
Whole nother podcast.
and that's a few episodes at that. Look, Nicole Allen Fisher, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for being fearless to step into this podcast arena with your boy. Well, I mean, you know, it's sometimes some love me, some hate me. There's few and far between that's in between.
Who hates you? Tell them to meet me in my inbox.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'll intellectually, handle up on somebody for you.
I already know
who hates you.
I already know. Well, and the reason I say that is just because this is why I created this segment called The Build is because I feel like it's very imperative for us to speak about things that are generally uncomfortable and most of the time are only spoken about behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these issues, not only do they pertain to everyone in regards to community, but it's something where I feel the more we discuss, the more clarity we can actually, get to.
Yes.
And so specifically with you, I invited you on here, and I'm so glad that you have accepted my request to talk about something that is, traditionally very uncomfortable to talk about, which is religion.
Yeah.
You and I have had these conversations a bunch of times. And I'm sure, other people have these conversations all the time too, whether it's friends, whether it's behind closed doors, or whether it's over the internet and they're commenting on something else.
Yeah.
What I appreciate and what, everyone that's viewing this, what we're about to go through here is two people who see something differently, and we get to discuss why we see it differently, and we get to ask each other, since we're both on, different sides of the fence in regards to, whatever confusion or whatever questions, whatever inquiries that we want to make. I feel like that's where we're going to be going with this podcast and with this build. And so I can't thank you enough. And so before we go any further, please tell the folks, not only who you are, but what you stand for, what you do out here in the community, and and just what you represent.
Well, I'm Nicole Allen Fisher. Nicole Allen Fisher. I am, I'm just out here. I'm just out here living life and trying to do my part as much as I can. I don't know. I'm in such an area. Oh my gosh, is somebody calling me? Someone's calling me. I don't know. I come from, we've talked about, my parents being, my dad's a minister, my mom was an adoption specialist and an evangelist. So I really just think that I live life, and I do what I can when I can. Oh my gosh, they're not gonna stop.
You blowing up over there.
Yeah. Well, it's my birthday, guys.
Happy birthday.
So thank you to the friends who are reaching out to me right now, but I'm not answering you because I'm live on Facebook with PZ.
Well, of course, they're going to reach out when you go live. I mean, that's
true, that
goes, right? Well, and allow me to jump in. This woman, obviously, it's like, I expect you to be modest. I've never, you've never been the type to kind of toot your own horn. So allow me to do that for you.
There would be people who would disagree with that statement. People think all I do is toot toot.
Well, no, it's like, allow me to brag for you, because these are one of the reasons why I am proud to call you a friend. Is the work that you do out here in in these streets and in these communities and in these neighborhoods and in people's lives. I had the great pleasure a few years ago when the Black Panther movie came out. You helped me and you granted me the privilege of uh, of us as a collective taking over 120 kids, I think it was, to go see the Black
It
Panther movie.
was a theater full of kids. Yeah.
Man,
Shouts out to LGR, Epe Udo, James Billings,
yes, yes,
and a bunch of other people that helped make that go off too, and Oklahoma City Public Schools as well. Uh,
absolutely.
Douglas, I think, was it Douglas Middle
It
School?
was Douglas High School that we met
High
up
school,
at.
but they're all together. Yeah, yeah.
Right, and we took some kids from Spencer too.
Yes. Yeah.
But then also, I had the privilege of talking to a portion of the kids before we went to go watch the movie, and
Right.
I got to show them my presentation in regards to
You
how
still haven't sent me that.
I'm gonna send it to you. I promise you, I'm gonna send it to you. But we associated. We basically we tied the similarities and the significance of the movie and the ancient African civilizations that existed, and how those two tied together. Not only was a beautiful thing, but why it was a beautiful thing is because when those kids came out of the movie, I remember one of them coming up to me saying, "Hey, the warrior women that were in the Black Panther movie, they were just like the Amazonian women that you were showing us."
Mm-hmm.
One of them also made the connection in regards to the movie having the vibranium, right? That outer
Yeah.
space mineral, and they compared it to King Tut, the Teenage King, who had that dagger, which till this day has not one speck of rust in it. And
Mm.
come to find out that dagger is made by a meteorite, which is not from this earth. So just little cool things like that, to where
Yeah.
so many similarities that were in the movie, actually the things that actually existed and actually that people come from, that they don't know about it. So it was really cool to do that with you. And I mean, I could keep going on in regards to the community service you do, but like I said, that would be a whole nother episode. So I thank you for your service. And like I said, I have to brag for you because people like you are the ones that move in silence and you just get the work done as opposed to just talking about it. So I had to let the people know that you active out here. You
Thank
know?
you for that, because I think a lot of times people automatically assume that if you are, uh, you know, when you work or you do something, they really do often assume that you're doing it for clout,
Right,
because
right.
social media, and because we do it on social media.
Mhm.
But the most important things I do are answer the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning for a friend who's struggling, and that has nothing to do with clout at all. That's why when somebody gives me the opportunity, I probably should take it and be like, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this.
No,
But
no.
but at the same time, I really want to hear from the person I did something with. I want to hear their perspective, how it touched them, and then it'll, what is does not always need to be said, right?
That's exactly right. That's why I had to say no, because it's unfortunate that we are in that time where people like to boast about who they are or what they do, and
Yeah.
they're boasting about things that they're not supposed to be boasting about. It's like a girl telling you she's pretty. It's like no, people are. We
Get
should.
out my brain. I just had that conversation with a
I
friend.
can't stand it. I can't stand it. And then it's like things where
We gotta talk about that sometime, because
absolutely.
I we'll talk. I won't get into it now, but
Struck a
man,
nerve there. I struck a nerve that didn't.
I was just talking about it. Like
For real.
the I'll get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like we're missing a key element of
Mhm.
self-esteem in this new society where we tell everybody what we are. I I'm not, there's no judgment in what I'm saying, but I wonder if people realize that whether if you wear a shirt that says let's say, pretty, black, and educated, right?
Right.
And you wear it there for people to see, that doesn't cause a natural curiosity. I
Right.
want to walk in a room and when I leave, somebody be like, wow, she was pretty, or wow, she was educated.
Right.
She's black and strong. And, I want people to get that. I don't want to lead into the room saying, this is who I am. And I think because I have gotten that,
Mhm.
there's a different level to the self-esteem that I'm able to cling to, especially as a woman.
Absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
so much in the breakdown of femininity to masculinity and those quote unquote roles. I'm not trying to like make the feminists mad, but for me, it's important for me to feel my the root of my femininity and be celebrated, not acknowledged. I don't
Right.
want you to acknowledge it because I'm telling you. I
Absolutely.
want you to celebrate it because you see it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong for someone to consider themselves, good looking
Yeah.
at all. That's
Nothing at all.
right.
And
It's
nothing wrong with wearing the t-shirt. There's really cute ones out there, But
sure.
I just wonder, do they ever wonder to themselves, would somebody tell me this if I wasn't wearing the shirt?
Exactly.
Because
Right.
most of the time you're going to get a compliment on the shirt. You really don't get a compliment on yourself.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
It,
there.
well, and I use this example sometimes when I'm in conversation with people. Um, you know, when someone is asked, how do you treat somebody, right? Or even if it's not even a question, but it's something where someone would say, I'm always, I treat that person nice. I'm always nice to
Right.
that
I'm
person.
always nice. Right.
Right. I'm always nice to you. Like, and it's like, even then, we're so fixed on trying to tell someone how we treat them as opposed to that person telling you how you treat them. Right. And whether you think you're a nice person, whether you
Mm.
think, you're not aggressive or you're not mean or whatever it is, it's like when you die, you don't get to tell people how you lived and how you treated them. They talk about you.
They talk about you. Right.
They talk about you.
And when you're not in the room, you know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
The energy is released, and people, you know, I don't care much for. I don't care much about what people think of me.
Right.
Um, but I think I would if 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 I didn't have the notion that I'm okay with people.
Sure. Sure.
I'm there are people definitely that I've had issues with, but and they can have whatever feeling they want because that's what I presented to them. That's how
Right.
they saw me. That's how they perceived me.
Right.
But if I don't take the time to at least listen to
Mhm.
what they have to say
Mhm.
about the way that I am, people
About the way
constantly
about the way you actually are, right? Because
about the way I actually am. Because I might not see myself in the way that I'm being perceived,
right.
Now,
Exactly.
that's not to say you take everything that anybody says about you.
Sure. Sure.
Right.
Well,
You
it's all
tell people who you are,
right.
but you can't really tell them who you are to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and
I'm
then
the best thing that's ever happened to
well,
you. You can't really tell.
and it's like there's always going to be two different sides to it. How you think you treat people and how you actually treat people. And
Mm-hmm.
then that also correlates to, ethics, right? Manners or etiquette.
Yeah.
Like I've never liked the person that says I'm a hard worker. I always do things right. I do things
Yeah.
perfect. Like, and they're telling you this as a
Right. The resume pitch.
right,
Right.
as
No.
opposed to the people that are around them are saying he's a hard worker. He's this, he's that. It's just nowadays everyone would rather tell you exactly how they want you to perceive them, and
We
and, that,
are.
and there's that
Yeah.
disconnect there. So that's unfortunate. But like I said, it's like in our day and age, I feel it's better to be the way you are, to where you don't preach and boast about the good deeds that you do. You let those deeds kind of boast for themselves and the people that they affect.
That's really what it's all about. If you're doing it for any other purpose, anything, honestly, I believe if you open a business and you serve a customer,
right.
if your main goal is not for the customer to have the best experience, you're probably not going to last that long in the business.
Sure.
So I think that we can apply the same exact thing to friendships, to love,
Yes.
to actions,
Right.
things
Right.
that we do. And I've just found through the many amazing, especially women that I've worked with or come into contact, that the most quiet ones, they're really that queen bee. They're really that one,
Yeah. Yeah.
The ones talking the loudest and the most are normally trying to prove something.
Well, I mean, it's yes and no, right? Because
yes and no, because I talk loud too, and I talk a lot too.
But both of us out.
but I'm saying not when it counts. Like when you go into a room, you don't just automatically make the attention come to you. In fact, I've been in rooms with you where then you get on stage and I'm like, where did all this energy come from? And then there are some people, they have all their energy out there all the time, wanting everybody to feel and to see it and speak about it. And so if they perform or they do an action, there's less, I don't know, gravitas in action because you put everything out here for me already. I've seen what you got.
Absolutely.
I want to be surprised. I like that. But I was saying that about just more people who are advocates, more people who actually touch people's lives, the people that do get 3 o'clock phone calls, they're normally the not soft spoken, but they just have to be the loudest in the room all the time.
Right. No, I definitely can agree to that. There is, I mean, no matter how you strike it, it's like the one that is loud, they're doing it because they want to be heard. Right? Like whether it's for the right reasons or not, they're doing it because they don't feel like they're being heard. Right. And then, like you said, the one who is silent in confidence, they don't mind if they're heard or not. Whether it's just that they say it, and that's about it, right? So let's go ahead and get into this Bible build, and like I said, the reason for me, I think this is so dope is because I get to ask somebody questions that have always puzzled me, and then you get to tell me how you see it. And this is the thing: there's no right or wrong answer here.
Right.
There's no, and I don't even expect you to have the answers, right? I'm just throwing it up.
Thank you, because you might throw. I know you go in on the research, so you might throw me something that I'm not familiar. But sure. I have access to a Bible, so
perfect. Well, and the things that I will talk about, that it's like I might have done some research. I will definitely screen share so you can see it the same way I do. But so it's like I don't expect you to have these answers, right? I just what I expect is just your honesty and transparency in regards to going. Even if you go, you know what, that is strange. I don't know how to answer that, and that is what it is. Like I respect that more than somebody who will just go, well, I have to stand this ground no matter what.
Yeah.
So
no, that's not me.
Not at all. Exactly. That's why you are here. Is that it's like I appreciate that you are doing this with me on a public platform, because there's a lot of people that are just like you and me that are on both sides of the aisle, where you have questions, but then when you talk about these things, you're met with ridicule, or you're met with just complete silence. Like, no, don't talk about that. Leave it alone. I had the privilege of having 2 parents who let me ask the craziest questions in the world, even if they didn't agree with what even the question was. So it's like I can't thank my parents enough for doing that for me, because
Right.
it let me explore other religions. It let me explore other cultures. And then I took that information and I put it all together, and now I'm able to draw some kind of conclusion and an opinion.
Yeah.
Now that opinion changes, like anybody
As it
else.
should. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I feel like thus far I would like to bounce off the way I look at things and what you think about it.
Okay.
All right. So
All right.
let me see here. I'm trying to think here, what's the least heaviest.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we'll go with this one. We'll go with this one
Yes.
here. Now, allow me to share my screen. Okay, so for me, I understand that Bible verses, you know, Bible verses, I don't want to say they differ, but unfortunately, people see the Bible verses and they break them down differently. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Um, the reason why I say that is because I feel like that is somewhat of the underlying issue of a lot of different interpretations of these holy books, whether it's the Quran, the Torah, or the Bible.
Mm.
So with that being said, when we read these things, do you read them as, it's like out of metaphorical, or it's like a parable? Do you take it literally, and I know obviously you can't hit them all like with the same brushstroke, right, and look at them all the same, but
Right.
nevertheless, generally, how do you look at scripture when you read?
Well, I mean, as a Christian, I think that, you know, the best thing to do is to pray before you read, honestly, because I, I think scripture breathes different in different moments. So yeah, there are some times when I take it quite literally because that's what it's speaking to me in my spirit and what I'm going through, or even what I'm trying to help somebody else through. And I go to scripture to get a word, to give to them. There are some times where I read it very metaphorically, um, because as a person in this time, this day and age, I've read a lot of other things that
Right,
surround specifically the Bible.
right,
So, you know, and the vast interpretations of those who are writing about the Bible,
right,
whether they're writing because they're, from a evangelical standpoint and they're trying to teach you something from the Bible, or they're writing about the Bible and how words came to be, how the Hebrew got translated, and what original languages there were, what things meant, like when when there's a story about Boaz and Ruth, and they eat uh like oil or something.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have a word for what they ate. There wasn't an English word when that got translated, right?
I see.
So it were things like we eat now like grapes, leaves, and olives and things like that, but those are words that were developed over time to address those particular things. So I also can look at the Bible from the fact that it's been translated and retranslated,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right.
But I think that the heart, the core of the breath of what is being said, hits me differently. It's more my spirit man than just what my eyes and my logical understanding is.
Sure.
I don't know if that made any sense, but
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. And it's deep, it definitely is deep. Um, and that's the thing about all the major religions, the holy books of all the major religions, the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible, is that they all have an underlying correlation, whether it's about bettering yourself and bettering the people around you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
being in tune with nature and things of that nature, where um, it's like I feel that I'm trying to say this the best way. If it's like if man didn't take the time to translate and taint it, it's like it would be 100% pure. And if somebody lived by it, like
Right.
everything, you know what I'm saying, like things are good for them, right?
Yeah.
They will reach like a certain level of content and happiness and so on and so forth and balance. And so for me, what I started realizing, through research and reading and all that is that you've ever heard of the universal law um, in regards to the law of correspondence?
Mm.
The law of
That
course, right? Have
one
you ever heard
thing
of that?
happens. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right. So,
I was like, what?
well, it's what corresponds. It's like what is inside is outside.
Right.
So above, so below.
Oh, below. Right.
And that's so true in so many ways, right? The easiest ways that I can think of that I love telling people when I talk about this stuff is that um, that birds, you know what I'm saying? Like if you think about it, the birds and fish, they do the same thing. Birds swim in the sky, fish fly in the water. You know what I mean? It's like it's there's that much of a correspondence of what happens out up in the sky and what happens down here on earth.
Right.
And then from that correlation all the way to us as human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you feel inside is how you exude and how the world is perceived. If you are an angry person inside, then the world around you will be filled with chaos. If you're a happy
Right.
person inside, things around you will be more content, right?
And
So
those things will out themselves, even if you're angry inside, but you pretend to not to be,
right.
there will come a time where that will come out.
It will reveal
Uh,
itself.
yeah. And then,
Right.
and in the same way that you were hiding, so then when it comes out, the good parts of you will be hidden because people will only see the bad.
Right.
When you rage, if you rage out in some way, the good,
Absolutely.
the good part, the part that you were handling, becomes hidden. So yeah,
Absolutely.
there's always correspondence.
Well, and even just in what you said right there, the correspondence in what you said, that what is hidden will be revealed, right? There is still that connection of what is not seen will be seen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So and that's how that type of ideology has led me to understand why there's so many corresponding ideas and so many corresponding perceptions of spirituality, because they're so closely related to astrology, right? The zodiac, right? The zodiac calendar. What I've come to find out is that not only are some of the stories that I've read in the Bible, but even geographical locations are reflections of things that are above us.
Yes.
Right? So, for example, I've read that uh, Bethlehem, right? In Hebrew, the definition of Bethlehem is the house of bread, right?
Yes.
And
Our
so,
souls are fed.
exactly, absolutely. And so now, even in regards to that phrase, house of bread, the house didn't necessarily mean a house. It meant a certain constellation, which was in the zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
And so that constellation, so house of bread, constellation of bread, the symbol of bread was always correlated with the constellation Virgo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so let me show you the symbol that correlates with Virgo on an astrological level.
I know it very well because I'm married to a Virgo.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Actually, matter of fact, let me see, which one is it? Yeah, it's that one. Okay. Let me get my ducks in a row. Yeah, so now it's kind of ironic too that symbolism. Let me find this page here. uh, that symbolism,
Yeah, it looks
like the letter M,
yeah,
right?
and slices of bread. If
And
you and the
exactly
bread and the last piece is falling. Yeah.
right, the sheaf of
Yeah.
wheat, right? The sheaf of wheat, which is the representative of the bread.
Yeah.
And so now this is a constellation that's in the sky, and then also it's a place that's on the ground, which is Bethlehem, where Mary, which ironically the symbol of Virgo is an M, and that Mary um, had given birth to the Son of God, right? And it's easy to correlate the Son of God to to the SUN just as
Right.
much as the SON, right? Um, and so then it's like even in regards to that, I've heard of the depiction, the description of the winter solstice. I don't know if you ever heard about that, where it's basically okay. So hold on, before I get to that, let me finish off in regards to Mary and why it's so important.
Yeah.
That it's the house of bread, and the time of Mary, which is the house of bread, is the time of harvest. And the harvest is when the sun comes out and brings, crops, right, for everybody. So it was a time that the ancient people always look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think a lot of these things I've started to realize is that to me, it seems like it was people personifying important times to show significance in regards to those times and why those times are so important, like the harvest,
Yeah.
like the winter solstice and things of that nature. And so, even in regards to the winter solstice, it talks about the sun dying and rising again, right?
Right.
And it talks about the three shepherds, right? The three kings. Remember the North Star, right?
Yes.
Now, all these things are actually an event that happens during the winter solstice, which is the Orion's belt. The three bottom stars of the Orion's belt are the brightest in the whole year,
Mm-hmm.
and they are pointed towards the North Star. And those three brightest stars at the bottom of Orion's belt have always been traditionally called the three kings, and they are following the North Star towards the sun, which hits its lowest point in the year. And to some people, they say that since it hits its lowest point, they say it's a symbol of death, and then it rises again and it
Mm-hmm.
comes back up, right? So, like I said, these are all, to me, it's like I'm talking about the stars, but then at the same time, I'm talking about these stories that we live by, you know. So when I started seeing that, I started thinking different about it. Now, what do you think? You tell me, what do you think about in regards to what I'm talking about and those similarities that I'm pointing out?
Well, I think that I think nature, Earth, the universe, the galaxy, you know, I think that it's participants in the, narrative of humanity. Um, Even, you know, I dream cinematically, right?
Mhm.
And I think of things in terms of like, what would it look like as a movie? And so, yeah, like I can imagine that the stars played out many of our scenarios, many things that are coming true now.
Right.
Um,
Right.
that they themselves communed together,
Mhm.
fought, murdered, loved, all of those different things.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because we have no clue. I mean, we really don't know what they are. We have no idea.
We
We
really
think
don't.
we think that we know,
Right.
and I believe in science, so there's good science to suggest that
Yeah.
we know, but um, we don't actually. So, but I could see that cinematically, that worlds and worlds and worlds away, there is an order, and it looks like us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It acts like us. It has feelings and emotions, the ability to think and ration. Uh, um, you know, so I think that it totally could be true. I really don't count anything out
Sure,
for
sure,
me when it comes to God.
sure. Well,
There there is a reason for me
right,
that
right.
there will be a time when all things will be known. I look forward to that time so much because I'm a know-it-all and I like to know it all. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, and what, I mean, in regards to those times, is it something where that enlightenment is it's just bestowed, or is it an enlightenment that you have to pursue?
I have no idea, but that is thrilling to me because they don't. I mean, I think one of the reasons that um, I've been, uh, you know, I've had my struggles with
Right,
Christian dogma, like the religion part of it, that man created the rules of it,
right.
that part. I've had my issues for sure. Um, but I think the thing that keeps me engaged is God, it's so intriguing.
Mhm.
What's gonna happen? What are these things really gonna play out the way that it says they're gonna play out? Have they played out a million times before? You know what I'm saying? And we just stuck to the script so much that we're kind of missing it happen right before our eyes.
That's
Uh,
exactly what I was about to say.
yeah. So for me, that it's just that it keeps me yearning to learn and to study. I separate very much. I'm a compartmentalist. It
Hmm.
bugs the crap out of most people who love me or engage with me on some deeper level because I'm very well versed at taking emotion and putting it in this box and
Right,
logic and putting it in this box.
right, right.
For me, that's the same thing with religion and spirituality. They're totally separate in my life because my spiritual person is informed by what I feel, which I cannot separate. That it's also probably um, at least influenced by
Hmm.
what I learned
Hmm.
or what I've learned in religion.
Right,
But
right.
they feel very, very different, and that's the only thing that I can tell anyone. Is like when I'm having a discussion with somebody who believes or doesn't believe, and we're just talking about like how does this make sense and what deconstructing what it means. That's very different than when I'm in meditation when I first wake up, just grateful for the sun shining. Those are two different, totally different feelings, totally different emotions for me, and different spaces in what makes up Nicole. So I want people, even Christians, to question everything. You know, you
Well,
have to.
let me ask you this before you, in regards to what you just said. Do you feel a certain level of, it's like that you have to pick a side if there's such a difference of feelings between your spiritualism and your religion? Is there a feeling of contradiction, or is there ever a feeling where you got to pick a side with it?
It does not, I can say this, there is no chaos in that process. There's no chaos in the middle. They don't they don't battle against each other.
I see.
Rather, they support each other
I see.
because religion is very harsh, but I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
I see. I see.
Religion really informs people to be quite nasty
Yeah.
sometimes.
Right. Right. It's just
Nasty
submissive.
and
It's just submissive is the biggest problem I have.
yeah. And they're the same thing, right? It's correspondence.
Mhm.
What is in me spiritually is going to show up in my practice of religion.
That
So
correspondence thing. Yep.
yeah, so I don't. one of the issues I had, growing up, I was a theater kid,
Right.
a musical kid. A lot of my friends were gay. And in fact, the first boy I had really, really had like a significant crush on actually turned out to be gay.
Oh man, I bet
uh,
you crushed.
no, not at all. Actually, I mean, because I didn't date or do anything in high school, so
Right. Oh,
I
it was
didn't
a kid.
have, huh?
It was a girl.
No, no, this guy.
I thought you said she a second ago. That's why.
Oh no, no, I didn't date or do anything of the kin when I was in the high school. So I didn't have that connect. I was a different kind of connection, and what I came to know was
Right.
that we were just kindred spirits.
Right. Right.
And so I've had many gay friends throughout my life, and I really struggled with how the dogma of religion and that verse that they keep throwing back to in Leviticus, missing all the other things that are in Leviticus, very, very silly law laid out in Leviticus. They missed all the rest of it, but that's the one, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that God is no respecter of sin. So
Right.
it doesn't matter which kind you do, right? If if that's what it is, it doesn't matter. So why are you being so harsh? So I had a problem with the religious dogma, but my spirit informed the way I acted. So I was never on board with ostracizing someone or being mean to someone or passing judgment on someone for the way that they live and whom they choose to love. So yeah, for me, it's worked out.
Right on.
I'm not sure it does that for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but for me, it really has worked I use the Bible as best practices, right? I take the best thing that's ever said, which is to love thy neighbor. And you could toss out the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe I do sort of in my own life because that's the one that I really adhere to. I didn't
Right.
really have a problem with stealing or killing. That's not in my bag. I didn't really have a problem disrespecting my parents. It was just not how they raised me to be. I didn't have a problem. I did have a problem with adultery, but that's another conversation.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Uh,
Let me ask you this. I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Have you realized? Have you noticed? I guess is how I should ask. Have you noticed that there is a certain religious hierarchy that exists with the major religions of the world?
um, I think Catholic and Protestant Christian vie for the top spot, and
Well, I mean, essentially
that's what
those are
they
all
always have.
essentially
Yeah.
those are the same thing, right? They're all,
Um,
well, I mean, like they're all pretty, right? Like, at the end of the day.
they're very, very, very different.
Well, no, I mean I know they're different, but you know what I mean. It's like I know a Methodist and a Baptist is different, and a Catholic, but they're all in the Jesus house, right? They're all in the Jesus category.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're Christian. So I'm talking about like, the major ones.
Oh, like Buddhism.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of Buddhists out there, but the most influential, there's only three major religions that are the most influential out here, which is the Muslim faith, the Christian faith, and the Jewish faith.
Okay.
The most prolific, no, I don't want to say prolific, but the most, kind of famous books in regards to religion are the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible, right? Those are the most influential, I guess I should say.
And technically, the Torah is in the Bible.
That's exactly right. But nevertheless, they're two different religions, right?
Well, it's the stopping point. It's the stopping point after.
Sure. But they're two different religions. Like they believe completely. Like their core beliefs they differ vastly, right?
No. Jewish and Christian, no, don't differ. They differ on major thing, which is
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Which is a
And
pretty big thing.
but they know he was a person. Like
What I'm
they
saying,
believe that, but they just don't believe he's the Messiah. And
right.
that's
They're
the
totally
thing.
different religions. Like
Yeah.
a Jewish synagogue, Christian church, even in regards to the customs, right? Religiously, they completely different, night and day.
Well, it's funny. Okay, so my mom was a avid reader
Mhm.
and studier of Jewish faith.
Mhm.
So we did have we did participate, in Jewish traditions within our Christian faith because they're the same thing until you get to Matthew. So
Right, but it's like
uh,
Christians don't have Hanukkah and what's the other one? Yamna. I don't even know how to pronounce it. The Yamna, some shit like that.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Christians don't do things like Christians don't wear yarmulkes. They don't have.
some do. That's why I'm saying like there's a mixing and a melding of all of those. Like
Well,
some
yeah.
Catholics, some like if you go Catholic within Christianity, then no, absolute.
Well,
They
no,
have
not
their
necessarily. The like bishop, Catholic priests and bishops, they wear yarmulkes. They don't call them yarmulkes, but they wear them little. The Pope wears one too.
yeah.
You know.
So there's to me there's just like it's all a hodgepodge. It's all a mixture.
Right.
And when if you I don't have you ever spoken to a rabbi ever?
No, not personally. No.
Honestly, some of the most fun people on the face of the planet for me,
Right.
the ones that I've engaged with, and they take it so lightly because it's so rich in history. It's kind
Right.
of just their you can't knock them. They're not going to get all like,
Right.
at you,
Right.
because it's just how they are. But the ones that I've spoken to often just keep talking about how similar we are, not how
But I mean,
different.
at the end of the day, they are two different religions, right? Like it's fair to say that a synagogue and a church are two different things. A rabbi and a pastor are two different things. Like it's fair to say that. Yes, there are similarities,
Yeah,
but it's not the same thing, right?
yeah. I mean,
Like a Jewish person doesn't go to Christian church, right? Like and a Christian person doesn't go to synagogues. They don't
I,
they don't read
I,
out the same book, right? Like the Quran doesn't have the New Testament, so they're not the same thing, right? Like is that fair to say? The Bible and the Quran are not the same thing. I mean, the Bible and the Torah are not the same thing.
well, the New Testament is the Torah,
No,
the
no,
first
no,
five,
no, no,
right?
no, no, no. What I'm asking is, if you take a
I mean,
Torah,
the Old Testament, I'm sorry, is the Torah.
if,
That's the first five books of the Bible.
if you take the Torah and you take the Bible, those are not the same books.
Mm,
Just because one of them has some of the information, it doesn't mean they're the same books, right? Because what makes them different is the New Testament, right?
yes,
Okay, so they're not the same books.
and some other right parts of it. Yeah.
Well, they're not the same books. And then they also differ from the Quran too, right?
I'm not as familiar with the Quran, but
Well, the Quran is about.
I've
Is
read
about
it, but not recently.
right.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with what mainly what the Bible or the Torah talks about. Like you said, there is obviously similarities, but
I found mostly that it's the names, like a lot of the journey of Muhammad to
right.
it is kind, it correlates
Well,
to
it's like they don't.
or,
So what I'm trying to do here is for us to both agree that the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible are three different books.
well, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yes, each stand on their own, yes.
Now, have you noticed the religious hierarchy within those three books? Like, have you noticed the chain of command, so to speak? Like, which one is above the other? Do you see that, or
Well, what the thing that I know from a historical standpoint, right, is that the Bible itself is the first book of history to really be published. So it gave a, I think that it, because it came first and it's revered even by those who are not Christians, like the in libraries, New York State, New York Library, um, and museums, first printed Bibles are worth a whole bunch of money
Sure.
because that was the first part of the printing process.
I
So
guess I
it,
guess
it started that industry. So
right.
I think that that's why it
What what
does.
what I'm
But
referring to, sorry to cut you off. What I'm referring to is
I feel like I know where
the
you're trying
religious,
to get.
the religious.
I think you're doing like skin color thing. That's what I think you're trying to get. But
No, see, never mind what I'm trying to do. Just listen to what I'm giving you.
okay.
The anticipation is probably why we're taking so long to get to it. So no, and maybe I'm not being as specific as I need to be. What I'm referring to is the religious hierarchy, like how there is a hierarchy in the gods that they worship, right? Like there's one god that's over another. There's a bottom god, and there's a totem pole. Those three religions, they're not all on the same level. Do you see that religious difference in the religious hierarchy when it comes to Judaism, Christianity, and the Muslim faith? Let me give you. Do you want me to give you a better, like a more
Well,
fixed example?
I'm because hierarchy has to be established. So who has established the hierarchy? Like
That's
in
a great
reference
question.
to
That's a great
who?
question.
Yeah.
So what I've realized is that, like you said, the one that came before all of them, which is the Torah, right? The Old Testament came before every single one of them, and then came the Bible, and then came the Quran. But now, when allow me to kind of paint the
I
picture.
don't know I don't know historically.
Well,
I really don't know
well,
by
I'll
are
show
we
you.
are we saying like by the printing process?
Like I said, that's got nothing to.
Like what?
No, I'm talking
No,
about
no, no. What I'm asking, are you talking chronologically came after each other, like literally by dates?
I'm talking
Or
about religious, who came first, right? Like the religious hierarchy, the one who's respected the most and the one that's respected the least, the one that's acknowledged the most, the one that's acknowledged the least. That's what I'm talking about. And let me give you more of an in-depth example.
no, no, no. I completely get what you're saying, but I thought you were talking about like in order of production, like which one was, how far back does the Torah go, like in chronological order as pertains to history. I thought that's what you were saying, but you're
No,
saying of importance.
of importance, of origin, of all of, yes, of acknowledgement. And so let me paint the picture a little more clear. The Torah, like we were just talking about too, that the Torah doesn't acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God, right?
Right.
Okay, so boom, right there.
That's way before then.
Right. And then also the Torah is the first, is the Old Testament, which is the first installment of the Bible, right? So boom, right there, that gives the Torah seniority over Christianity. Fair to say.
No.
Okay, so it came first, and then the Bible came second. So if I, it's like if I was born before you, I'm senior to you. So if the Torah came first.
Well, no, because the Bible, you have to, the history of it is that they sync. So the first 5 books of the Bible and the Torah, same thing.
No.
The Bible just continues on in history,
I know,
whereas the Torah does not tell a story such as the Bible does. It does not prophesy such as the Bible does.
Well, not only does it not prophesy, it doesn't believe in any of that. That's why it didn't keep going with it, because the Jews don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. So that's why it doesn't speak about
if you're talking about Jewish people as a religion or Jewish people as a
the book of Torah, the Torah does not speak of the New Testament. So, and then on top of that, what came before the New Testament was the Old Testament. And we just established the fact that the Old Testament is the Torah. So the Torah came before the Bible, right? Because Jesus came after the Old Testament.
That
right?
would be, well, I mean, we would have to agree to separate out the Bible, right?
No, what I'm saying is that there's a sequence. One came before the other.
Okay, but let you just tell me what you're saying and why you're saying.
I mean,
I don't think we have to agree on such points.
Yes, I think we do, because it's chronological history.
Yeah.
Like if we look at dates, the Torah was written before the New Testament.
But Jesus was a Jew, so you can't.
No, that's got nothing to do. Hold on, that's got nothing to do with what I just said. What
I'm saying though is that you're applying a thing to.
I'm just stating a fact in regard to
the Bible is the first to be disseminated to all sorts of
That's people. Not the question. That was never the debate. What I'm asking you is that what I'm asking you, what I'm telling you is that the Torah was the book that people were worship, like that was the book, right? The Old Testament. There was nothing else. There was just the Torah. And then came the Bible with the First Testament installment. Is that fair to say? So the Bible didn't exist. First, it was the Torah that existed. And then years down the line, the Bible came about. Is that fair to say?
Of course, because of how far.
That's what I'm saying. So,
yeah, but that's why I asked you, are you talking about chronological order? Are you talking about importance? I don't assert
because the chronological order is what dictates importance.
No.
So my point is this. Is that the reason why I used, when I was saying that one came before the other, seniority means like a grandfather, the importance of the grandfather is more significant than
it would seem that way, but that's not the way that religion treats it. That's not the way the world has treated it.
But without the Torah, there wouldn't be a New Testament. So that's why it's so significant, because it came from that foundation. So we can't
say the New Testament basically says, you know what, that Torah, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Whether covered by grace. So it almost, a lot of people, a lot of churches do New Testament preaching. They don't do Old Testament preaching.
Look, that's not my religion. I know, but that's not like I said, that's not my what I'm trying for us to both get on the same page on. What I'm trying for us to establish, and for the viewers also too, so they don't get confused, is that the Torah came before any thought of the New Testament or the Bible. The Torah was first, and then the Bible came. Can we agree chronologically? Chronologically, even that's how it happened. So you're telling me
because it's out of order. Like also the books are out of order. So Job would predate actually Genesis, like the writing of Genesis, Exodus. No, you have, if you're talking about the chronological order, Job has been given that it is the oldest book to be written.
Like that's not the debate. Job is not the debate.
I'm not debating.
Like I said, what we're going back and forth about is the chronological fact.
I don't think we're gonna agree.
No, I mean, this is the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's not an opinion-based comment. That's what I'm trying to say, is that, like, chronologically, when we look at history, one thing comes after the other.
Yes, the totality.
Well, hold on. When the Torah is the foundation of the Bible, without the foundation of the Old Testament, then there wouldn't even be a reason to write the New Testament, because
but there are more books in the Old Testament than just
that's fine. That's
the first five. Wait, you got it. You got if you want my understanding, you got it. Listen.
No, but you're taking the conversation. It's like you start naming things that have nothing to do with the chronological understanding that the Torah came before the Bible. Now, whether there's a
no, I already established that the Torah was written before the totality of the Bible was placed together and disseminated. I have already
the religion of
said
Judaism existed before the religion of Christianity.
Of course.
Okay, that's all I've been trying to.
I was trying to get you to say that because I know that that's what. But we were in semantics about.
Well, no, but it's like you said we have to
chronological order or whatever.
For something like that, we can't agree to disagree because historically.
Oh, we totally. I mean, there are some people who would disagree with you.
Well,
and say that
you can disagree that the sun, that the sky is not blue.
I'm just saying that people can find. Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing.
The Torah was a symbol. Jesus, who Christianity is based upon, studied the Torah. So yes, that had to be.
All I wanted to establish.
But at the same time, that all of those, they're not. If we're talking about chronology, that's a different conversation. But yes, the established religion of Judaism was there before Christianity.
Exactly.
100%.
Now, which in that sense, that right there dictates the seniority of the religion, which is why, like I said, it's like
seniority, but not importance. I would think.
Well, importance is an opinion-based thing. What you find important, I might not find important. So that's what I'm trying to say is that the religious significance, the religious acknowledgement or the disacknowledgement. So, for example, now that we both are on the same page on that, it's the hierarchy is this: is that the Judaism does not acknowledge Jesus. Right? And the Old Testament comes from the New Testament. So one is above the other. And then if you look at the Islam faith acknowledges Jesus, but the Christian faith does not acknowledge Muhammad as a prophet. So right there is conveying the religious acknowledgement and significance of these religions, that the Jews do not acknowledge Jesus, but the Christians acknowledge the Old Testament, right? So basically, the Jews are saying, I don't have to acknowledge Jesus as Son of God, but then the Christians say, I have to acknowledge the Old Testament, showing that I have to acknowledge you while you don't have to acknowledge me. And then the Muslims have to acknowledge Jesus, but Jesus, the Bible, does not have to acknowledge Muhammad. So do you see that hierarchy there, that level of who is acknowledging who, and that significance of that religion? Like it's saying, it's almost like I have to take in regard what you guys are and what you do, but you don't have to do that with me, and vice versa, and all the way down the chain. Do you see that?
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Right. Now, do you see anything, like, what do you think about that? Like, I'm curious in regards to what you think about that, those three levels of either acknowledgement or lack of acknowledgement, and showing the level of hierarchy between those three major religions.
I don't think it matters much, honestly, because to the importance is to the person in that religion. So I don't really much think about what Muslims practice or believe. I might acknowledge, and I guess I really don't think much about what Jews acknowledge or believe.
Okay, so we were just talking about how all three are similar too, but at the same time, there's a level of, like I said, lack of acknowledgement. And then, like you said, I don't really think about what they believe. Do you think that's what I'm saying? Like, does that help us where we all have just this way, you go this way, I go that way. I'm not saying we all got to believe in the same thing and do the same thing, but especially when it comes to our spirituality, I would like to assume it would be more conducive for all of us to be on the same page in regards to the gods or the different figures within our holy books, right? Like if there was more of a cohesiveness within them, don't you? I would like to assume there would be, it's like everyone would get along a little more because we all have kind of the same understanding of spiritual outlook.
Well, all I can say is people who believe in the exact same Jesus have been fighting each other for centuries. Um, so I don't really cotton to that ideal that um, humans are going to mess it up no matter what. No matter what the belief is, we have listen. We ascribe in America, right, to a constitution,
Right.
but we literally had states try to secede from that constitution, right, and couldn't. So they are literally here by force. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Holding
right,
on for dear life to what they hold dear
yeah.
as we try to move forward. So I just think that the human element, listen, a family, like we love mom, and a sister's like, no, screw mom. Mom was bad to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just the way it is.
I
Like
mean,
if everyone prayed to the same exact God, we would still find a way to F it up.
I mean, look, I'm not, it's like I'm not.
Why am I so light skinned on the screen? Like melanin faded. It's like, what's going on?
I'm mixed in this one.
No.
I
keep flashing like this bright thing. Keeps flashing. Like, where is she?
I definitely agree. I definitely agree that that us as human beings, we are good at messing things up. But there's a lot of things that we do all agree on universally, man. Like, and I just don't understand why spirituality can't be one of those things, right? Like murder, like we all know that's not a thing to do, but
I think the basic core of us does believe in the same principles of how to live life, but at the same time, there are cultures, literal cultures centered around stealing from the rich,
Sure,
right?
sure.
There are cultures that celebrated murder as sacrifice, right?
Sure.
So I even while proclaiming belief in the same God. And then there were some people in those cultures who thought this ain't the right thing to do, right? So they might have split off.
Right, right.
But they say the same tenets are there. It's like, it used to be a thing in Black churches that for whatever reason, white supremacy, I'll just cast it at that. But we were taught to fight with each other and not, not really be cohesive as a people. So that we didn't band together and mount up. Okay, so that's another podcast. But many churches got big.
Right.
And they split apart because one, deacon wanted to do something his way.
Sure.
The Catholic Church, the biggest split, right, is the Church of England and the Catholic Church.
Right.
Because some king wanted to get a divorce so he can marry his mistress. You know what I mean? Like there's and that's one guy. If you go back, if you read some of the things that the people under him, his underlings, were writing in secret about him doing that, but they did it with him because he was a king. That's one dude that changed the entire landscape of a religion.
Sure, sure.
in a crazy way, you
Right.
know? And then you look at America, and although we are not a religious state, although our money says in God we trust, we're not a religious state, but that was the origin of our beginning, was a split from the Church of England.
Sure. Sure.
So I just think that but we still, the Church of England, Catholics, same thing. Um, you know what I mean?
Right.
Christians, Catholics, Jesus, same thing. Mary, Blessed Mother, same thing. But but it's the people. It's the people. It's the man's influence over religion,
Right.
because there is no religion. There's not a actual religion, right? There are followers of Christ, believers in God. But that doesn't, we made up what we're going to call all of those things.
Right. Right.
Jewish was not,
That's true.
like, being a Jew wasn't a religion. It was the actual, like me being, an American, or me
Right.
being Black, or
Right.
from Africa. Like,
Mhm,
it
mhm.
wasn't until until people who weren't actually Jews could become Jewish.
Got him. That's a whole nother podcast.
So I I just think that,
That's a whole nother one.
so what I do is, there's not, I remember, we lived in Gallup, New Mexico, a very small
Right.
town.
Uh-huh.
There was a Muslim family up the street from us. Gallup is filled with Catholics, and um, they were they just kept to themselves. You would see them. They lived on this hill, and
Mm.
so everyone on the street saw them drive into their driveway because of the vantage point. Like,
Yeah.
if you're outside, and she would get out, and she was so beautiful. She had these gorgeous eyes, and she would always have just the most beautiful head wraps, and my mom just marched up to their door one day, and she was like, we never see you at anything, block parties, things like that. Do you have kids? No, she didn't have kids. And they became fast friends. Her husband was a little like, what are you doing? But at the same time, he could see how happy she was to have another woman to
Right.
speak to, and to have tea with, and so my mom actually brought a gorgeous Quran that she was gifted from that lady home, and encouraged me to read it.
Mhm, mhm.
My dad's a Baptist preacher.
Yeah.
You know, I I I think the problem is, if we were ever to get to where you're talking about everybody believing, we probably would all need to be educated on all of them.
Well, and it's like at this point, yes, just because there's so many of us that have been pulled all these different ways, right? But for me, what I do is I sift through the bullshit,
Yeah.
and I try to find that underlying connection to all three of them, which makes them, why it makes them so important and timeless. And that's when I started, like I said, I was able to correlate that a lot of the things that are personified in all these Bibles, whether it's the characters or
Right.
things that have been, kind of geographically acknowledged, right, as
Mhm.
places of worship, or they have some kind of spiritual significance. I started realizing a lot of them are reflections of not only nature, but nature's habits, nature's intentions on us. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's a seasonal thing,
And hours on nature.
absolutely.
Honestly, yeah.
I really feel like a lot of that stuff is us just personifying them because they have such significance, and then also it's a way for us to document and keep these things as important information, right? Um, you know, it's
Well,
funny.
I think the interesting part is that when you come behind something, right? Whether it's scientific, whether it's historical, when you come behind it, you're able to put the picture together
Right.
faster than those who are living it and compiling it.
Absolutely.
So we would not know of the zodiac without the history being told. But at the
Absolutely.
time that was happening, that was just life for them.
Right.
And so everything that we have is a story. It's
Right.
somebody's interpretation of what happened.
Right.
Everything that we
Right.
have. There's nothing purely factual that we 100% know that this happened. And that's why science is intriguing too, just as religion's intriguing. There's no definite answers. There's no definitive answers.
But in a weird way, when you say that, I agree. But then also at the same time, that's the thing about the law of correspondence is that yes, a lot of this stuff is a mystery, but then at the same time, it is right in front of our faces, and it's very blatant.
Very. Yeah.
And it's something where it's like if you don't perceive and look at it the right way, then it will seem alien and foreign and far out of reach.
Yeah.
But
I think as our current civilization, our current system,
right.
If there was a matrix moment and everything went away, there would rise up another such manual for humans to go by, or whatever hybrid of human we might become. So there'll always be a manifesto of some sort dug up, because the first thing that they find in the rubble might not be the Bible.
Sure.
It might literally be something written. It might be the Church of Scientology manuals. You just never know.
Well, and that's why I feel obviously,
sorry, I was just saying that we always get back to a normalcy. We always get back to a general understanding of the human principles of don't hurt someone, and the way you feel, the best that we feel, the worst that we feel, and the best is when we love.
Right. Yes, and what you're speaking to is, what I feel is the main reason why I went on this huge pursuit in regards to learning more about other religions and the religions that I used to follow and other cultures and all that, is because of what you said right there. Is because nature demands a balance. We are an ecosystem, and if one thing is out of whack, nature will strive to rectify that and put it back in its place to where it runs like an ecosystem, like we're supposed to. So whether that's environmental and whether that is spiritual, but it's like even with our morale, like morality, I guess I should say. Like you were saying, is that at the end of the day, we started realizing like, yo, you can't just kill anybody you want to. Like, we just can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have laws. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that's kind of going back to one of the things you were saying, that if we were able to get on the same page spiritually, somehow we still couldn't. That's what I'm saying. It's like I feel that we actually can if we do exactly what you said. Is that we go back to the plethora of information that the past has left us, right? And when we tie these connections and these things together to where then you can go, like for example, for me, when I started realizing, like I said, that religious hierarchy, it gave me an understanding of, number one, what religion came, because it's like when I was able to draw those distinctions, I was able. It also showed me chronologically which one came before, and then what also coincided is that even in the beliefs and the stories, they coincide with their level, with the hierarchy. Who respects who most? Who respects who the least? So it's like that's when I started going, well, hell. So then there is some kind of dynamic that's working here, and that dynamic it exudes within the people, right? Like Muslims know in society they hold a certain level. Christian people know in society they hold a certain level, and Jewish people know in society that they hold a certain level. And so the only reason why those things are set that way is because of the religious significance that they all hold, right? So for me, I feel like when we touch on things like that, when we touch on, like I said, the astrological similarities of things that have been personified here on the ground through stories or through ancient times or whatever, parables, whatever you want to call them, all those things are leading to the same conclusion that all these things are connected. All these things are part of the same, understanding and laws, right? The universal laws. And so it's like if we all just started connecting those dots, I feel like we would get to a better place of enlightenment and understanding amongst each other.
Yeah. Uh, I, of course, I believe in an afterlife. So I feel like this is such in the in thinking of the absolute awe of eternity.
Yeah.
This is such a short time
Oh yeah.
that we're here, and so I think that as a Christian, also I'm informed to remember that this ain't it. You know, there's a story written out for me somewhere. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I feel like my ultimate enlightenment, and along with brothers and sisters in my faith, and also just people, because I'm not sure where I land on that whole afterlife scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that there will be a gathering of souls, you know, and I think that kind of what it means to me is don't attack me, Christians, but if you live your life with the principles of faith that are to love your your neighbor and to
Right.
treat others as you'd want to be treated, how else then could you believe in all the same things, you know, inherently.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you call, it's always been interesting to me that there's literally a commandment that says, thou shalt not put any other gods before me. Well,
Mm,
that is an acknowledgement that there are other gods.
mm,
So,
mm.
because it wouldn't need to be said if there weren't, you know.
Exactly.
And there would be much more of an explanation, like, oh, it didn't say false gods, it didn't say fake gods, it said gods.
Other God.
So,
Yeah.
you know, um, but I'm kind of going backwards, but just I feel like our enlightenment's coming. I feel like we can let ourselves off the hook a little bit for being totally, arrived at that utopian place,
Sure.
as we live on this earth, and just the things that are happening right now, and
Mm-hmm.
like that we have no control over the visceral response that we have to the injustices that are happening to Black people. As enlightened as I am, I want to somebody up over the things I see. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so somebody might do that, even
Right.
though they believe that killing is wrong. Somebody somewhere is probably going to have a retaliatory, gun wound,
Sure.
bullet
Sure.
wound. Am I mad at it? I believe you shouldn't kill people, but am I mad at it?
Right.
Sometimes
Well, and even in regards to that, some people do deserve to die. Like I'm not even gonna front. Like not everyone is supposed to just live a happy life. Like if, and then not even that. It's like even in regards to taking a life. Sometimes that is done in self defense. You know what I mean?
sometimes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's not like people just are always just constantly going out there just taking lives. Sometimes you have to take a life to protect others. But most importantly, even in regards to um, for me, I feel that the more I know that I understand this thing we call life is when I can bounce it back to nature. And people always try to say that too, like, why do you always try to use nature like as like the wildlife? And I'm going, because for me that is the most, I mean, no pun intended, it's the most natural and the most basic way of everything. and
You mean like using animals versus like humans?
not necessarily animals.
I always think
Nature.
I think it's a very peculiar thing that we don't consider ourselves nature. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, because nature encompasses more than animals. It's
Right.
Nature is everything, and it's like it is that machine that powers all of this existence,
Right.
all of it. So yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate people dumb that down when you talk about nature, and they just kind of like, yeah, we should act like animals, like there's so much more to it.
Not what I said. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
then also just even the science, right? Like, um, how bees, the pollinate plants to how rivers and waters, rivers and things like that, they have their own natural filtration system to, I can just keep going of all the things that even scientifically there's no way we can explain, but nature does in a level of simplicity. You see what I'm saying? Like that's what I mean in regards to it. And so when I feel
Standing at the continental divide, you pour out a glass of water and it goes this way and that way because it
that's
seeks
crazy.
where it's got to go. Like
Wow.
it's it's the wildest thing. Yeah,
Wow.
and we don't understand that we are the same. When we take in information, it goes to where it's got to go. You
Absolutely.
don't get to control that. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? So
Absolutely.
so it's best to give your best to another person because it's gonna like negativity. If you give someone negativity, it's gonna go where it's got to go.
Exactly.
If you give somebody love and light, that's gonna go where it's got to go.
Right. Right.
And that and having a balance of it, you can't have all positive. You can't shouldn't have all negative. Some of it
Well,
has to balance each other out because you have to learn how to deal with negativity and
absolutely.
how do you do that without experiencing some of it. So I don't know. It's all very, very, very interesting and intriguing. Like I said, I'm a curious person, and I feel like that is my greatest joy. Is that I'm still interested, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because I fight sometimes between nihilism, like nothing really matters, you
Mhm.
know,
Right.
and everything, means something. I
Right.
those are those. That's the chaos in me, honestly. It's like,
That's the battle. That's the
you
battle.
know,
Well, and
um,
that's what I was saying was, when when I can correlate nature to whatever I'm trying to figure out or understand is when, and I can successfully make that correlation is
mm,
when I I I feel like I've reached a certain level of
yeah, you're like,
exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So to what you were talking about, and why I'm saying that is because, like you're saying, in regards to the frustrations that I'm confident that I speak for a lot of people, white, black, all sorts of religions, in regards to what's going on with these police shootings
Mm,
and all of this. Like the frustration, not only is it getting to a point where, I don't know what's going to happen next type of thing. And he's, you know what I mean? Like it's bubbling up.
yeah,
Now that type of frustration, like you were saying that, you know, obviously you don't want someone to go out there and do something crazy, but
right.
you sometimes you get so frustrated where if somebody does, you look at them and go, I get it. Like I
I
get it.
really do.
Like if anything, you were just brave enough to go get it done, you know?
Yeah.
So, but the reason why I'm saying
While
that,
the rest of us sit around twiddling our thumbs trying
right,
to figure out, you actually just, I can't fault the person who shot Bin Laden. I can't fault the person who killed, how did Hitler die?
well, they
I
say
don't remember how Hitler
he
died.
killed himself.
Okay,
But
well,
let me
I
my point
couldn't
real
fault
quick.
the people who wanted to kill him or killed the Nazis. I can't
Right,
fault them for that.
right,
I can't fault North Carolina for wanting to put uh, um, the kid that walked in and shot up the church to death. I
right,
can't fault that. I can't fault a father who saw his little girl, um, you know, the father in the Olympic doctor's case,
Mhm.
where he was
He was
just, let
molested.
me at him,
Yeah.
let me at him, give me 5
Give me
minutes,
5 minutes. Yeah.
all I need. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And with him were probably the feelings and emotions, the rawness of that experience of all of the other fathers who might not be as aggressive. So
Right.
it's like, let somebody take one for the team. If
Well,
that's the way it happens, that's the way it happens.
right.
For me, like the smartest thing for us to do, that's another podcast. I'm not going to say that
Well,
out loud.
what I was saying is that the fact that, um, unfortunately, that's why I feel like, all of this, it's gotten to a place. I don't want to say not a place of no return, but it's gotten worse, and so the the methods of rectifying it will be just as rough, right? Is because you have to have violence so we can acknowledge and understand peace.
Well, my fear is that people are not acknowledging their history here. This is not as rampant an issue as it once was.
Right.
Um, and there were equal measures of violent protest as well as peaceful protest, as well as political negotiation, as well as expenditures of capital, whether that be monetary or human
Mhm.
capital. All of those things work together to rectify the situation before to a manageable level, but it never fully went away because of people, right? That's always the thing. This is not going to be fixed. White people killing black people because they're black and they're scared, that is not going to be fixed. We should not have that as a goal. It's not going to be fixed.
What does that mean? What do you mean
We're,
fixed?
it's not going to not happen anymore.
Okay, I
Just
see.
like it's not going to not happen that some some men beat up women or pedophiles abuse children. Those are conditions that we have got to learn that are here for us to deal with. We have to up our strategy. We have to up our game of understanding to know, okay, nobody's going to eradicate this. There's no savior coming for us, right? It's just the our biggest example of that is how they took the one that they laud to this they laud
Hmm. Hmm.
to this day,
Hmm.
Malcolm. Uh, what I'm saying Malcolm and Martin at the same time, Martin Luther King. Um, they laud him, right? They talk about him. They they preach what he says,
Right.
while at the same time not being able to acknowledge how utterly messed up all of this is.
Right.
So, and they killed him. The government killed him,
Right.
right? So, spied on him, broke up his marriage,
Hmm. Hmm.
all sorts of different, really, really terrible things. But we've never been here before because it was worse before. But we could look at what was done before and realize that all of those things have to march together in step and order. That's why, today I wrote something because it just came to me because, you know, the thing that gets me all the time about social media is when something happens,
Hmm.
you got to go to a side. And if you're not on a side, then, you know, you're not woke or something, whatever the terminology.
Hmm.
But I was writing, it's okay to see people looting and burning down buildings and say, y'all stop that. It's not going to work. But it's okay also to be like, well, they should have known that this was going to happen. And if they didn't let stuff like this happen, if they responded in the way that they were supposed to respond, this stuff wouldn't happen. It's okay to have both of those minds. And we have to be a kind of people that accepts that some of us move like this and some of us move like that, but we want the same thing. What do we want? We want more black bodies to come home safe every night. You know?
Absolutely. Well, and even like in regards to that analogy that, you know, the two different viewers, one's looking at the looter going, that's not going to change anything. I don't know why you're doing it. And then the other one going, I get it, right? What's unfortunate is that the one that says I get it is empathizing, but then the other one who says y'all shouldn't do it sometimes empathizes, but then
I totally empathize,
well,
but I don't think I think it makes a I think it sets the progress back. But I also understand that not everybody's looking for progress. So for me, my empathy is understanding that we don't think alike. So and we're not all trying to get to the same thing.
it's
What
not
I'm what I'm trying to get is that people be as safe as possible. I can't ask for that. I can't say, let's take it out of the realm of violence. I can't really support Black business, right? While supporting rioting of Black businesses. Those things
so my point, what I'm trying to
don't
say
go together. Yeah.
what I'm trying to say about that is that the unfortunate thing about the ones that don't empathize is that they don't get to the same conclusion that, for example, a little kid, right, who something happened to him that, maybe he was beat up or maybe he was assaulted, like, sexually or something, right? And then when he comes home, he tears up his whole room, right? Yeah, of course he should have done that. But one could look at him and say, you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't react that way. And then the other one could say, I get it, I understand. But they could both say, like, one could say, you shouldn't react that way, but I get it. And then the other one should say, I get it.
I get it.
To where,
you should react that way.
Right. Where, yeah. They both feel different, but they both reach the same conclusion. The same way I was talking about.
Yeah.
The same way I was talking about in regards to religion and spirituality is that if we all reach the same conclusion in regards to spiritual perception, then we would all understand that even if you think that person shouldn't have done it or you think they should have done it, we both understand that it's coming from pain. We both understand that it comes from pain.
Yeah.
When people riot like that, that is not coming from a place of happiness. That is not coming from a place of content and success. And that comes.
I don't know. I think some people are opportunistic with it, but that was the conclusion of my thought, that it's okay to be all of these things and have all of these differences or think differently, but it is not okay not to have empathy and understanding that this is trauma to people. Right. This is loss. This is grief. This is suffering and travesties and injustice to people. It's not okay to look at the situation and not see that.
Exactly. I agree.
It's the only thing you can, even those who might be opportunistic in this, it's not okay to come in and incite
even
violence,
even the opportunistic
for your own agenda.
Sure.
That's not okay. Because you're not being empathetic to what happened.
Right.
You're trying to capitalize. I sent you, I wanted to talk to you about this, but I sent you a picture of a shirt, a design that I made. I would love if you would share it. It would be awesome.
Absolutely.
But we did Legally Black the other day, and I was talking to friends, and I was like, I have this definition of what I feel like we're trying to say to the world, which is that because I'm Black, I'm not suspicious just because I live in Black skin. That's all we're trying to say to y'all. Right. We don't want nothing from you. That's all we're trying to say to you. So they were like, oh my gosh, that's great idea. You should put that on a t-shirt. Everybody should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I was struggling with powers outside of myself that I didn't want to come off as opportunistic. But I know in my spirit that I would go to court, right? And speak again. I would put myself in a certain harm's way.
Sure.
Also to speak out against what happens to people. I will give of my time and my resources, my brain to to write letters and do whatever. So me being an entrepreneur and having a profit over something like that
Mhm.
is not me being opportunistic to my own agenda, because my agenda remains the same whether you buy a t-shirt or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
want the I want
in,
the message out there.
in regards to even that, that opportunistic type of person in the midst of all this chaos, even that's what a riot is. It's people who are in a level of despair, seeing opportunity, and I'm not saying it's good opportunity, but it is nevertheless to them. That's what's unfortunate, and is that when we
Well,
do.
some rich people can get caught looting during those rides. People that don't, no, that
I
there's a
mean,
saying that nobody likes free stuff more than rich people. So
I don't know how many rich people have the balls to go into a neighborhood like that and do
in
that.
LA, that there's a documentary that follows what happened in Rodney King, and there's one specific part of it
Mhm.
that talks about that, like them going to people's houses and knocking on their doors and being like, you were caught on camera. Yeah, we just want to know
Crazy.
why
Yeah,
were you there, and they were just like, well, everybody else was doing it. Why shouldn't I get something? You
but you
know,
know what I mean. Majority of the people,
I know.
right? So,
I
so in that regard, like I said, it's like, and like I said, I'm not condoning, but what's unfortunate is that when people they feel that backed into a corner for whatever reason, it's unfortunate that a large population of us as people, we chastise them for it. And then the other side of us is going, I understand, and we empathize with them for it. And like I was saying, it's like if people would understand that when people riot and loot, that is not coming from a place of feeling content with oneself. And so they're going
Yes,
to take every
I
opportunity.
wish that
They're
there
going to take.
was
Well, hold
some
on, let
way.
me finish. They're going to take every opportunity to show that I don't feel right, and somebody needs to see it. Right? It's like a kid lashing out, tearing up his room. He's not just doing that just to tear up his room. He's doing that because inside he's trying to tell everybody that I'm hurting. And then obviously a hurt person, what do? Hurt people hurt people. They
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
I
So
just hope they don't hurt anybody black. That's really what I think, that nobody who died, a
right,
person who died,
right,
Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, they wouldn't want other black people to be hurt because they were hurt, right?
I
So don't
totally agree.
touch anybody stuff that's black. I don't know how we do it, what kind of sign we got to put up in the window, but if y'all got to loot and root, please don't hurt anybody black. Those people did not need to have to build up those businesses again. They
Absolutely.
don't need that tension of being probably as enraged as the looters are,
Right.
but still needing to feed their families
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
pay their employees. So don't y'all hurt anybody black.
Don't you do
I'm
it.
just saying, don't do it.
Well,
From a,
and also too,
I'm 45 today, so I'm almost a big mama.
yeah.
I'm telling y'all, don't you do it.
You almost got that big mama status. All you got to do is do one of these.
I'm telling you. I may not look like it, but I'm getting
Well, and
there.
this is the thing too, is that you know, unfortunately for the ignorant people, who might watch this and they don't know how to, to kind of differentiate, is that no one is saying it's okay to loot, and no one is saying it's okay to riot and do all that stuff. Obviously, that is not the best way to convey how you feel about something, and it's not the best way to process emotion.
Right.
But like I said, the underlying issue is what needs to be addressed. And we're all old enough to understand that fact that when somebody does that, it's coming from something deeper. And I just wish that we as a people, and when I say people, I mean all races, that we can honestly look at that and address it and call it what it is. Because there's black people who do the same thing, who will chastise our own people and say we're just acting like some, you know, some wild animals, and this is
Listen,
why
I saw
nobody wants
animals today and had to sign off of Facebook. Like,
you know.
first, let me tell you about animals.
Well, and it's like nobody.
When you want them, they come for your throat. You know what I mean? They don't stop fighting until it's over, even as they bleed,
Right.
exsanguinate, and die. You know,
And it's
like
like no one looks at people the same way we look at, like I said, like the quickest thing that I could compare this to, like I said, is an adolescent kid, or you know, somebody who has somehow been emotionally traumatized or scarred. And so how they show that they're still, you know, unfit inside, and there's still a level of discomfort, is they act out. So it's like, for us to not understand that as a people, that we as a people, we are like, I don't say like little kids, but we are big humans, or an accumulation, right? Like, and how we act is reflective of all of us too, you know? And it's like, yes, we might all think different, but we still move as a unit, whether we want to or not. And so, like, for me, that's what I'm saying. I feel that if we had more understanding in the things that religiously, that these issues would iron themselves out. Because a lot of us, that's exactly what we do, is that we refer to our religious, you know, our religious guidelines, the things that we live by according to our faith. And so a lot of us, that's what we pull from. So a lot of times when people act a certain way, and then I still see them going to church on Sunday, it makes me wonder who and what they're praying to, because whatever that is, you know, what they're internalizing, they are exuding. And some people, it's hateful. It's some people.
I'm Nicole, not Jesus. I mess up all the time, y'all. Yeah, I just strive to live. I'd rather hurt me than hurt somebody else, and you know what I mean. Like, and so I do try. That's the only, just kind of wrapping it up full circle. Like, that's what I'm most concerned with, is
Right.
people understanding that, you know, no matter what the book is, you know, there are fundamentals of humanity and our own spirituality and how we're connected to the universe and to the earth, to nature.
Right.
We are just what we are, and we can use the principles of the fundamentals of the teachings of religion to help us live our best lives.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let me throw one of these at you. That, like I said, that kind
Here we go.
a scripture that it makes me wonder. So obviously, it's like we can, you know, it's like I don't want to. I'm not the type of person who cherry picks. So we can go.
This is the go-to cherry. This is the go-to cherry on
Well,
the tree of trying to understand the Bible. People use this one a lot.
I mean,
This has been a discussion.
it kind of makes sense, because it's such a, you know, it's a very confusing statement. So I'm not surprised that people are kind of confused about it. So this is Genesis chapter 6 verse 6, and what it reads is, and obviously I have it here in the various different
Right.
versions, and so what it reads here, and just to let you know, Nicole, we got about, I wanted us to go about, you know, 2 hours at the most. So we have 12 minutes till 2 hours.
Oh gosh.
Right. So let's do this. Let's go to like 2 hours and maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then hopefully we can get all the stuff in. And so I'll read it. So Genesis 6:6 says, the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on earth, and his heart was deeply troubled, right? The English Standard Version, and the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So, I mean, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory in regards to why, you know, why that's so weird, and and kind of
Is it weird though? Is it really weird? Very much like us.
What do you mean?
Okay, so the if I had a son and he came from me,
Right.
and he was evil and wicked, I would have a moment. I know I would, where I
Hold on.
regretted, where
Hold
I regretted my decision.
Hold up. Hold up. Are you sure you want to make that statement?
Yeah, 100%. There's no way that, as with the human heart, that if you created something that tore something else down, that was vile, and if you gave birth to a son and he was a pedophile, and he molested children, you would question, you would regret is a thing. Like, we make decisions we regret all the time.
Yeah, but not your seed. Like most people
If
do
you
not
had a son
regret
that
their seed.
that was a rapist and a
Yo,
murderer,
even
you
then,
wouldn't you wouldn't regret, you wouldn't have a moment where you're
absolutely
like,
not. That's
oh my gosh.
child. That's my child. Whether no matter what, like
We're
I
we're different, so I don't
sure,
know.
but well, this is the thing. So most people, like let's use your example. Most people, if they have a child who have committed some heinous act, they're in the courtroom with their child while their child is being convicted of molestation, pedophilia, whatever, murder, rape. They're in there in
And
the
God was
child.
right there. This story, because it's Noah and the ark, right? That's where it's centered around. Is
Sure.
Noah and the ark and starting over. So he didn't get rid of everybody.
Well, just
He's
the fact that he's
it's the same thing as, like, some people. You said it earlier. Just it's You think that it has to do with, like, the lineage, like with our connection as a child, but some people deserve to die. You couldn't say If you can't say that about your own flesh and blood, if they
no.
actually do.
Okay.
And that's what he's saying. The wickedness was so much that,
No.
because you
That's
have to
what
read,
it says
you
here.
gotta you have to read in context, because if you take anything out of any book and you just say, that, you have to read in context that the verse before talks about the wickedness, the like outrageousness of what was happening in that time. And
Sure.
then the verses after talk about how he took care of the earth. And like you have stated, a lot of things were written in a metaphorical way, a story, parabled way, um, and they're not announced as such.
Okay.
So there
So
could have been a great flood, right? And only a few survived, and this is the way that they wrote that out. And the person who wrote it or told the story could have correlated to, like, man, that's karma. You know how we say that? We'll say, that's karma. They shouldn't have been like that, and that wouldn't have happened to them. So
so
God, I'm with you. I totally understand. Some of these people can be swept away in a flood. Although it's not going to happen again, because he said it wouldn't. But I wouldn't mind for somebody to get swept away in a flood. And if my child did that to someone else, I would probably be the first one to call for it.
okay. So
That's how I'm informed.
oh, got you. Now you said a few things there, so I'm trying to like remember everything you said. Now the first thing was you had said that you compared the Lord to a human heart. I think you even said the human heart, a human, like, a mother or child. So obviously it's like we already know that the creator is not the same as a human being and the way a human being thinks, right? Because the creator is the creator. So the way
we're the same as him because we're made in his image. If you're talking about God and how he's referred to in the book that you're citing, then you have to understand that we are created in his image.
So I know made in this image is not saying we're the same thing. made in his image is saying that we
But he calls us his children, right?
So
So
a child is not the same
in
as
that,
a parent, right? The child is still
but
different.
you have to, if you're going to take it from the rest, you have to use the source material. So in the source material, he calls us, all of us, his children. So it's the same. It is the exact same thing. It's even more so. It's even more so. But it's still historical. It's still legacy. It's still DNA. You know.
So for example, the Lord God, according to most of these books, the God doesn't. So you're saying God and a human being are the same thing. They do the same thing. They are like. Is that what you're saying?
We, by the Bible, the source material, are created in his image.
I know, but like I said, something if okay, so a child is created in its father's image. It doesn't mean they're the same people.
No, I didn't.
Right.
I'm not saying that.
And that's differentiating that one thinks different than the other, and one is a creator, the other one is not. The father is a creator, the son is not. So,
The son could be.
Well, that's not the fact. That's not
Right.
right. The point is that one is a creator, so one will perceive one way. The other one is not a creator, so then they will perceive a different way. So my point is, all I'm trying to say is that the way a mother and a child, the way a mother or a father could potentially, which, like I said, like I'm sure there's people out there in the world who regret having kids, but generally people don't regret having their kids, whether their kid is a murderer or their kid is the Pope. Most people, if you bore a child, that child is always yours, and it's called unconditional love when you have a child. That's what generally.
There is no such thing in humanity, but
Well,
that's what I believe.
You have
that's what I believe. But
for example, in my family, there is such a thing that there's unconditional love. Obviously, it's like I can't foresee things that haven't happened that could make them think twice. But so far, anything and everything that we have done, my parents have loved us always the same, and they've treated us.
But you would have to you're comparing it to what he said about his creation, right?
So I know that's and
is that they were wicked, so we can't really take it the same way as like you being a good son.
Well, no.
And your parents saying that about you. I would have questions to that.
I never said I was a good son, and
no,
I'm saying not all kids are good. So I'm talking about whether you are a bad kid or a good kid. Your parents love you unconditionally.
I don't believe that.
Generally, that's how it is. Like
I don't believe. Of
course, like I said, you have the right to not believe it. But like I said, that most people who have kids, they love their kid no matter what the kid does. It doesn't mean they agree with what the kid does, but they love their seed no matter what, and they support them all the way to whether it's death row or.
I think the LGBTQ community would speak to that in such a powerful way, but that is not the case. I think race relations would speak to that in a powerful way. That is not the case.
That's not majority of everybody. That's not majority of people. Like the people, like for example, LGBTQT, whatever it is. Not only is there a huge percentage of those people where their family accepted them for who they are unconditionally, but majority of people we love and we accept. We treat people the way we want to be treated. That's how most people do things, right? Like most parents care about their kids. They don't disown them. Most parents, they're glad that they had their kid. They don't regret it. Most parents have their kids. They don't abort them. These are things that are general. It's not the other way around. Like it's not most people disown their kids. It's not statistically. That's not what it is. Most people have their kids,
but what the thing that you're taking out of the context is that most people are not wicked. Most people are
what?
Well, most people are not wicked. Most people are not don't have the actions that would cause a parent to question. That's true too. So if you had it, if you, I would believe you if it was the other way around. If people were wicked and there were so many,
People are wicked. I'm not saying most
okay,
people are wicked, and
no, I'm
even those
saying,
people that are
but
wicked, most
I'm
of their
saying
family,
if
most of
most
their
people were
family,
wicked, if most people were wicked and their family still loved them, if
that's
that was the
generally the
case,
case. That's
huh?
generally the case. Most people who are in jail for heinous crimes, most people who have done things that their family's not proud of them,
Were
generally,
abandoned before
I
birth. I
disagree.
mean,
I disagree. Yes, there's a percentage, but most people, their family still loves them, and like I said, it,
uh, well, let me do the research on that, and I'll get back with you because I want to be, I want to make, I don't want to just talk from my feeling about it. I want to make sure that I know
it's. I mean,
what
like I
I'm
said, I
saying when I
mean,
say that.
sure. I mean, like it's something where it doesn't just have to be in my vicinity where I'm seeing this. It's that it's the same thing where most parents they will entertain a lie or a fib to for the comfort of their child because of how much they care about their child. For example, a parent will create the idea of Christmas and Easter Bunny and all these things, and the only reason why they do that is for the love of the child. And so I feel that it's that same type of love that a parent has for their child when they're going through the darkest times, is that they will figure out a way to connect with their kid to show them that look, I'm always going to be here for you, and I'm going to move mountains for you if I can. And so when it comes to people who commit crimes or do things like that, or if however wicked they are, I would like to assume that majority of people do not regret the child that they created, no matter how wicked they are.
I think you would have to talk to people with wicked kids.
Well,
For
I mean,
us,
I'm
right now, it's a semantical conversation because
well,
neither one of us are in that position. So I think
I don't have to be wicked to understand that
no,
fact.
I said I think you would need to talk to parents. Like,
I know people that are wicked that I know their parents.
hold on. What I'm saying, you would really need to assemble a randomized sample of people whose children are in jail, and really ask them. Like you could ask them like what,
well, I mean, look, we can
and
randomize it.
not just jail. I'm talking like wicked. When I say wicked, I mean like pedophiles, rapists, murderers.
Like I
That's
said, man,
wicked.
you'd be surprised the love that someone has for their seed, and
I don't think
it's not as short lived
I don't think
as
that God didn't love.
God. That's what I'm saying.
God is love.
Well,
So
if He's love, then why would He
listen.
the seed?
You're taking an outside human perspective and not
Well, you
giving
were
the
the one
full.
that was comparing it to a human perspective. You said
No,
the
no,
Lord
no. You're
does
saying
the same thing in
I'm
person, right?
comparing it. I'm comparing it to a human perspective within the the source material that we're using, which is the Bible. So if we're using that same source material, then it says God is love, and everything that He does works to our good. So if we're wicked and we're going to die by wickedness anyway, it would be better to smite us off the earth.
So so love and regretting your child is all in the same thing. You can love your
Oh,
child and also regret having them. Is that what you're saying?
100%.
Oh, wow.
What?
Okay. Well, obviously, I completely disagree with that. You can't love something and regret it even existing. That doesn't even make any sense. It's like
Because regret is not permanent. You can regret something and then not regret it the next moment. You can say, because I had to come to that
regret.
myself. Hold on, wait. There was a time when I would look at mistakes that I've made as all bad, right? So I lived in regret of those mistakes. But as I grew and I learned, I let regret kind of go. But at one time I did regret it, but now I don't. And I love that I was bold enough to take a step forward and make a mistake and risk it all and
Okay.
risk it failing and going bad. But as I was regretting my decision, I didn't love myself any less. I didn't love the way I move or operate any less. It just is. So if the story stopped there, that would be a whole another thing. But the story doesn't stop there.
It's
It
not
also
the fact.
doesn't start there.
It's not the
So
fact that the
that's why
story.
that's why I'm never going to argue the word of God. It's just
Well,
not.
it's not the fact that the story stops there, which is something that I never implied or said. What I'm saying is
No,
the
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying it's important to acknowledge it
sure,
that that's not where it stops.
sure.
So it in context of that one, I've had this discussion so many times I can't even tell you.
Well, let
But
me
in
make my point
context,
real quick.
yeah, yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the fact that when you make that, when you establish that type of emotion, it's been established. Now it can change, but my point is that it has been established. Like, I'm not saying that a parent has never had a time of doubt or whatever is going on when they have a kid or about to have a kid. But my point is that there is a certain level of of like loyalty that you have to a seed, and when you get to a place of regret, even that parent will always remember that at that time they felt that way about their own seed.
They
And
will.
so that's why I'm confident to say that I would like to assume that most parents, they don't live in a state of regret when they have a child in
Listen,
in the time of
listen.
their life.
As a woman who's gone through labor, as a woman who has endured um, miscarriages, horrible, horrible scenarios. I can definitely tell you that as much as I would have loved my children, that there were times that I regretted being pregnant. There were times that I regretted being in that situation, but that did not lessen my love for those lives that even now, one has a face because I held him, but the others don't. I did have regrets, and I know women who, in the throes of labor, scream out in utter agony at why did they do this? Why'd you do this to me?
Sure, but
That
I mean
so
that's
you
that's not the same thing. Going, I wish I didn't have this baby.
it
That's not the same
it
thing.
at the moment it is, but it changes.
No,
It
it's just saying. It's just no. It's being
you
frustrated. It's
as a
being
woman, I'm
hold on,
telling you,
hold on.
I
Let's
I
get
don't
there.
think you can speak to a woman's position on this.
No, that's not.
That's
No,
the only reason. I don't
no,
want to get into the
no, 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 no. I can have an
because
opinion. What you
but I
just
don't
said.
want women. I really don't. Let me say this. I don't want any woman watching this who has said that to feel judged. So I'm
Well,
gonna say,
because I'm not judging them
uh,
either. What I'm saying is
well,
that when someone is saying that, they're talking about the pain, not the child.
no, they're talking about, like, why am I doing this? Like,
Okay.
I'm scared to death. I don't want to take this baby home. I don't want to give up my body. I don't want to give up my lifestyle. I don't want
Yeah,
to
but
uh,
all of those things are not
have
saying
to
I wish I
do.
could do this. All that's saying is that right
Even
there.
I'll Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
But
did God.
that's not translating into
So did God.
I didn't do this at all.
So did God.
My point
Same
is that
thing.
what you just said
I'm
still
saying
doesn't, like, if someone is saying,
what
"Oh my
you're
God,"
saying is the same thing that it was with God. It's not permanent. It's a fleeting thought that happens and then you move on.
I know, but like I
You
said, all those
try
comments you just made about a
try
woman
and do
who's
better.
in all those comments you just made about a woman who's in the hospital going, "Oh my God, I'm scared to take my baby home. I don't want." Da, da, da. That's not. None of those translate to saying I shouldn't have even done this.
But you don't know that though. You can't
Well,
say
I'm
what
just judging off what you're saying. That's just having a fear of taking the kid home.
you don't know that. You're explaining somebody else's emotion. You really can't do that. I'm saying it
All I'm
from
doing is
the
drawing an
position
opinion
of
on what you. All I'm doing is drawing an opinion on what you
no,
said.
I
That's
get
all I'm
that.
doing.
No, I mean I totally get that, but I'm just saying it's
I'm
an
not telling
area.
anyone how to think or how they thought. I'm
No, but
saying
it's
what
an
you
area in
said.
which it gets a little like because you just don't know, and I don't
So
want anyone.
I'm not
I don't want anyone
implying that I
to.
know. I never said I know. All I'm saying is that when I hear someone say, "Oh my God, I had a kid. I'm scared to take the kid home. I'm scared to do this. Like my life's about to change."
I should have
None
never
of
done
that,
this.
in my mind, in my opinion, none of that translates to saying I shouldn't have done this.
What
All
if
that's
they do
saying is
say?
all
What
that's
if
saying
they
is
do say I shouldn't have done it?
all that is saying to me when I hear that is that someone is just they're scared to do those things. They're apprehensive about doing those things, not saying I shouldn't have done this at all.
But what if they do say I shouldn't have done this?
That's their prerogative. But my point
Do
is that
you then hold on? Do you then think that they don't love their child?
I never said that. My point is
I'm
that
asking you.
what my point
I'm
is
not making an assumption. I'm literally
I
asking you.
don't think for other people. What I'm saying is this is that majority of people don't say that. That's what I say.
I don't have a problem with that.
Majority of people who create seeds and create people, they don't regret having the seed that they created. That's
No,
what
I'm not. I'm not suggesting that they are.
I
I'm
think you
speaking.
actually did.
No, I didn't. I said that I don't want anyone who has had that feeling to feel judged for having that feeling because it is a perfectly natural thing, especially as a woman. I'm telling you,
Like I
it's a
said,
perfectly natural thing.
no one has ever, I've never said anything otherwise about in regards to that. People are entitled to feel those ways. It's just that, like I said, is that when we compare it to a scripture that says that the creator of all human life regretted making human life, that when you correlate that to the general consensus of most parents do not regret making their seed. So that's why I compared it to another creator, which is a God, and a creator, which are parents. And one is regretful. And then, like I said, most parents, I'd like to assume that are they don't say, "Man, I regret
You would have to assume, yeah.
Okay, so that's the first one, and obviously we see where we
Oh
land.
wait,
Oh,
we have more. It's 8:23
okay, I'll
on
be
my birthday. I
okay.
just want to point that out.
Okay, let me do just let me do this quick one. Well, not even this quick one. Okay, I'm gonna do a quick one for you, and then I'll let you go. So hold on, let me share it real quick. I got a different one, but I'll
I'm
hit.
like I'm
I'll
like
hit
Biden's. I need Biden's secretary to come in and be like, "We can't," and then you're gonna say, "You can't do that to black media." I love it.
so what I'm gonna do here is uh, I look forward. I mean, it's like I wouldn't be mad at you if you didn't want to, but if we're able to do a part two, there's other things I would love to pick your brain about. But this one right here, we can conclude with this one. Um, so Ecclesiastes 3:11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. So before I go into how I see it, I'd like to ask you, how do you see that scripture?
Very plainly, exactly what is being said. Um, and yeah, especially fathom, creation is wow to me. Like, and and what you do during the time that your creation goes forward, and like, what do you do when you're just, watching and the mind of God? But that kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, that that's why it's so intriguing to me. That's why I stay interested, is because I cannot fathom what he's done, and I do feel eternity in my heart. I do feel that there will be more than this.
So in regards to the latter part of that,
It doesn't go to the latter part of that.
no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. What does that say to you?
That we cannot understand what God did in the beginning. there's no person, right? Just in chronological order of, or as it deals with history and chronology, we can't even fathom the beginning of our life because we don't
Okay.
remember that.
So then
And sometimes at the end, we can't fathom because we're demented, and some or have dementia. Sorry, I should say it that way. Um, so even in our own lives, we cannot fathom the beginning of how we got here. Like, when you look at a picture of yourself as a baby and you're like, how was I ever that small?
right.
And like me right now, I imagine that me at 75 would look at me now and be like, wow, how is my skin ever that smooth? No, just kidding.
So
That's how I take it.
Well, and it's like you said, the key words for me right there too is that we can't even fathom how we even got started. So it's like, then how do we explain? I mean, a lot of things in the Bible, but most importantly, how do we explain Genesis? If we can't even fathom what has been done from beginning to earth, how do we have Genesis where it's literally explaining what happened in the beginning?
Right, but it doesn't explain it all, right?
That's not the case. When I'm just explaining anything at all. It's not
right,
explaining it all or half.
But fathom is to completely understand, and if you don't have the complete set of circumstances, you cannot completely understand. So that even speaks to the fact that the Bible was written by a man. That book was written by Moses, right? So that was how he understood it, and that's how he explained it. But that it doesn't say God wrote that book, right? It's a story, like all the rest of the stories.
So are you saying that you do believe or you don't believe in the story of Genesis and the origin of the world and man?
I'm saying that
Because it's like, if according to this verse, we couldn't fathom what had happened. So then obviously in Genesis, it's documenting what happened, and then
no, you really have to have, and honestly, like I think it's hermeneutics, right? There's a study of like how to interpret the Bible, and if you haven't really studied it, it is hard to use the proper context because you have to have read so far before it and so far after it. Sometimes if you took almost any book, and you took one quote out of the book, that quote could probably stand alone. But something that was written over this many years and these many authors, it's hard to do that. But so it does
But
not say.
let's talk about this specific one though. That's what I'm saying, because this one, I think I gave you the
but
chance.
I'm saying we're not. The end is not even. We haven't. The end is so.
That's not the point of the scripture.
Ask me this when we're on the other side. When we're at the end and beyond the end. When we're at the end,
that's not
and we're beyond. Hold on.
Go ahead.
When we're at the end, and we're beyond the end, I will have an understanding of exactly what this means.
No.
The end. Oh, how can you talk about the end if it hasn't happened?
Nicole, I'm not talking about. Listen, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I feel like this is why there's so much confusion in religion, because it's like there's so many ways that you try to rationalize it that
there's no ration. What is end? What is end mean?
In a circle. Let me finish. When I brought this on, I asked you, what is your interpretation of it? And you said it's pretty self-explanatory. So when you said that, it put us both on the same page in regards to what words we are both looking at and how we are defining them. And then after I read it to you, then you were able to, it's like you're telling me your interpretation of it, but then you start going off into how confusing Bible verses are when when
I didn't say they were confusing.
well,
They have
you
to
know
be
what I'm
taken in
saying? You're
context.
saying that yes, you can take them out of context. My point is that we established the context of this scripture before we did anything. And so that's why I'm saying is that let's not go, let's just look at this and let's decipher this
I am.
as
Okay.
opposed to generalizing all the
Is
scriptures and saying how they're so hard to read.
is there an what does end mean to you? What is the definition of end?
The opposite of the beginning.
But what does it mean?
See, the reason why I'm hesitant to answer that because number one, that is not the point of the scripture. The scripture is not specifying or trying to drill in a point about the end or the beginning.
It literally ends with
what the
from
scripture is
beginning
talking
to
about.
end.
What the scripture is talking about is what man can and cannot fathom. So that's my point. Is that
The
now
scripture is talking about
I
God
feel like we're
creating
splitting
things
hairs. I feel like we're
that are
splitting hairs
beautiful.
when we talk about what's beginning, what's ending,
We're
because
not, because it's right there. If you really are taking the most literal way to look at this, it literally is saying you can't understand what
what
God
God
what
has
if
done.
I'll replace it with Nicole. Peasy cannot understand what Nicole has done from her beginning to her end.
No,
You cannot understand that.
I prefer not for us to use that comparison because you and I are not in the same level as a God, a creator. So, and then on top of that,
But it works to everyone. It works to
no,
everyone and everything.
let's just keep it as pure as it is right here. What we're looking at, we're both looking at the same words. And so when we say, when this scripture says that no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end, the beginning to end part is the least of your concern in the scripture.
It is not, honestly, because it's really saying fathom what God has done. Like it. So what
Understand? Okay, so
classifies the
let's
rest
use
of
what you were
the
saying.
statement?
Let's use a layman's term for fathom. No one can understand
What
what God
God
has
has
done
done
from
from
beginning to
beginning
end.
to end.
Okay, so now and then I followed up and I said, so if that, and actually before I even followed up, you even said, how could we even know where we come from? And you're right, like how can we even know that? And then that's when I was like, I'm glad you said that because how can we say we understand how the world was made and how people were made if this scripture is saying that we don't understand what God has done?
It
So
doesn't say that we don't understand any of it. It's saying from what time to another time.
so
From beginning to end means from one time to another time.
no, it's
It means from one time to another time. But
it's encompassing all time. What's outside of beginning and end?
everything
Beginning
in the
and end.
middle,
Well, the middle is between beginning and end. It encompasses everything. So that's what I'm trying to say. When you try to split the hair and say,
no,
beginning and end is only saying one time, it's encompassing all time from the beginning of time to the end of time. There's nothing outside of that.
if you take the sentence by sentence structure, like grammar, that is not true because it would need to say God from beginning through the end.
Look,
To be what you're saying.
I'm not here to correct how they did it in regard
I'm
to that.
not talking about correcting, I'm talking about understanding and interpreting.
Whatever. My point is that he is saying that through time there is a beginning and there's an end, and time lives within those boundaries, the beginning and the end. And the humans do not understand what God has done within that. So
that's not what it says. So
I mean, you can read it different, but
but you do understand that two is different than through. If they meant through, they would have said through. But two is different than through.
Look,
That
like I said, you can split hairs all you want.
it's not splitting hairs.
That's
It's just being
exactly what
grammatically correct.
you are
It's just being
splitting hairs.
grammatical. It's only being
The
grammatical.
beginning and the end is encompassing the sequence of all time. That's all it's doing. You can say whatever you want in regards to how a to and in and out and but. At the end of the day, if I say to you that I have been around from the beginning to the end, the alpha, the omega, that's encompassing everything that is in between. You even said, you go, where's the middle? The middle is between the beginning and the end. And
I'm saying that all I'm saying, because I'm not arguing the scripture, I'm not arguing the word of God. That's not what I'm saying. If I'm looking at words and how we learn to read words and to interpret them, the word to is very significant in this position, the way that it's used. It's significant of time. So it denotes a time. It does not denote the thoroughness of like navigating through that time. It's just saying from nobody can tell you everything that happened from the beginning of the First World War to the end of the First World War. We can't tell you that in totality, but we can't understand specific things that happened because we have the
comparison. That's not the right comparison.
history. It's the comparison you get. We have the history to denote those things that happened, but we can't understand it all.
God in this,
you want to argue scripture, but I know better.
I don't want to argue scripture. All I want to do is us look at the same words and we draw the same conclusion. That's why earlier
you would have to look at each word, and you would have to understand that to means there's something different than through. And that's what I'm literally trying to do with you. It's like saying, like, all we have to do is say, if we said from beginning to end, right, or beginning through the end. They're two different things.
Like I said, from beginning to end is encompassing all that is within existence.
That's your opinion.
Existence sits.
You're entitled to that opinion.
Especially when it comes to human beings, we are between the beginning and the end. We're in that. We're not outside of that. So when this, the reason why you're doing this is because if you didn't, you would be agreeing with what I'm saying. Is that how can God? How can we say? How can
I literally just like English? And English, the English language dictates what the word "to" means. I'm not going to change that because I want this to.
It's not about me changing anything. It's me.
My narrative.
It's not me changing anything.
But I think we got to put a point there because I give you a lot of time. But I don't want to argue scripture. I'll give you my interpretation of it. But I literally am looking at it right now as if it's just a sentence, not from where it comes or anything like that.
So you see how we spend all the time on beginning and end and not the main point, which is how God is saying that no man can fathom what
God didn't say this, though. He didn't say this about himself. Somebody else said this about him.
What the point is are these not God's words?
No, they're not God's words because God does not refer to himself as God.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying it's like, are these people are not speaking in the spirit of God, right? So him by this person saying
this
that
is a person. This is a person saying something about someone else. This is their opinion. That's their opinion about.
Okay, so now this is opinion. This isn't true. According to someone,
you can believe an opinion, or you cannot believe an opinion.
I know, but you're the one that believes in the Bible. So I'm asking you: is this opinion or fact or true that God?
Even if I didn't believe in the Bible, even if I didn't believe in the Bible and God as I know Him, I completely agree that everything there is beauty in everything. I completely agree that I do feel eternity in my heart, like I feel beyond this place, and I do believe that I cannot understand how things were created,
right,
and the whole totality of creation, and I know not of the end. So one or the other is still true.
And no one can understand how things were created, which is, like I said, which is why for me it's confusing when you look at Genesis, where someone is explaining exactly how God has done things.
Well, it's the same thing as think about it as watching a documentary. It's not going to be the exact
No,
same thing because it's written by a person.
A documentary.
But you're making the Bible like this supernatural thing that like was planted
No,
here on earth by God.
No, all I'm doing
It's
is
a guy.
no,
It's a guy writing down stories. It's literally a guy writing down stories. That's the way you can look at it.
Sure, but like I said, there's nothing. I'm not making this supernatural. All I'm saying is that in this Bible verse, it's saying that no one can fathom what God has done. Yet, in the very first book of the Bible, someone is explaining what God has done. That's all.
They don't explain everything that God did.
I never said they explain everything. I said they were explaining what God has done. There you go, splitting hairs again, where it's everything.
Okay, but that is significant.
I'll let you shut us down.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
No. You can have like a conclusion statement or whatever you want to say.
No. I don't. I just want people to live their best lives. That's it. I want everyone to be safe and sound, and I want people to remember that we are fighting against things that we cannot see all the time, and that there's no quick fix or no permanent solution, because when people are involved, we tend to get off course. So hopefully, everything that we're going through right now teaches us something. It teaches us to be better for ourselves, better within ourselves, better to each other, and don't argue with people.
Look, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate your time, and happy birthday. I hope you have a good night. And also, in regards to the subject matter and everything, like I said, man, it's something where I just, anytime, whether you are a viewer or whether you are a potential guest in the future, all I ask for is, is to look at things with an open heart and an open mind, and whether it agrees or doesn't agree with how you look at the world, I feel like it's always beneficial for us to constantly reassess, to constantly check and analyze what we think we know and what we think we understand. So, like I said, like I'm not here to change nobody's mind. All I'm here to do is to make sure I thoroughly convey how I see things, so then that person can get the most understanding of what I'm trying to say, and vice versa. So, like I said, Nicole, thank you so much for your time, sis. I hope you have a good evening and have you a happy birthday. Are you going to do anything, a little house party, anything crazy? What?
No, man, I'm old. I'm old. I just wanted to chill. You did give me a good excuse to like look like this on my birthday, because I normally do a birthday pic every year, and I was like, I'm just not gonna do it this year, but holler.
There we go. Oh, got you.
I got some selfies.
Thank you so much for being my first guest on the build, and thank you for building with me. Whether like I said, sometimes these things get uncomfortable, but thanks for weathering the storm with me. I appreciate the insight, and I appreciate the way you look at the world.
Well, I you know what? I always appreciate a person who is willing to be uncomfortable. So as much as, I think we all have our firmness, like our footholds.
Sure.
And I definitely have those, but I don't want anybody to come away from me, even if they watch just this conversation or any conversation I have, thinking that I think I know it all. I just believe what I believe.
Absolutely.
Until something shows me that I shouldn't believe that,
Until that day. I don't know what will ever change it, but based on what we just did here, I don't know what will change that.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty strong in conviction. And like,
you might slap you in the face. You can be like, "What was that? What is that?"
Yeah, doesn't faze me. I really don't care what other people think of me.
Those flat earthers. People believe in the flat Earth. One. I knew somebody who believed in it, and I asked him that on purpose, and I said, "What would it take for you to realize that's not what it is? Like, what evidence do you need?" And he couldn't say. He couldn't say what what he would need for him to walk away from that idea.
Yeah.
So it made him sit there and go, well, do I really believe this, or am I just stuck believing this because I want to believe it? So I'm glad. I love how you said that, because it is
You
one of
should have said, I want to go up into space and see, because you'd be able to see from space.
yeah,
That's the answer to that question.
I know. It'd be hard. It would be hard. But yeah, it's valid though.
Anybody who needs help talking to the Mad Hatter, PZY, y'all call me up. I'll let you know how to navigate this situation.
You funny. You funny. All you gotta do is come with the facts with me. You'll be all right. You'll be all right.
I'm sure.
Hey, you have a good evening, man. Have a good evening. Like I said, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
No problem.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Bye.